They call it the Great Wealth Transfer. It is the single most repeated bedtime story in modern finance. You've heard the numbers, you've seen the headlines, $50 trillion, $84 trillion, a tsunami of assets passing from the calloused hands of the baby boomers into the waiting pockets of Millennials and Gen Z. The narrative is seductive. It promises that the younger generation, drowning in student debt, locked out of the housing market, and crushed by inflation, is about to be saved. We are told to just wait, to hold on until 2026, because when the boomers bow out, the money will flow down and the world will right itself. There's just one problem with this story. It's a lie. The money isn't coming for you. It isn't sitting in a vault waiting for the reading of a will. The wealth you think is waiting has already been targeted. It has been marked for extraction. The greatest transfer of wealth in history is happening. But it is not transferring from parents to children. It is transferring from the middle class to the system. If you are waiting for 2026 to save you, you are already the victim. To understand the heist, you have to understand the timeline. History doesn't repeat, but it rhymes. And right now, the rhythm is deafening. We are approaching a convergence point that financial historians will write about for centuries, if anyone can afford the ink. Why this year? Because it is the year of peak boomer. The year the youngest baby boomers hit retirement age and the oldest enter their critical care years. It is the demographic tipping point. For decades, this generation fueled the economy with consumption. They bought houses for $30,000 that are now worth $1 million. They built 401ks on the back of the longest bull market in history. They hold 52% of the nation's wealth. But wealth in a financialized system is not solid. It is not gold bars in a basement. It is paper. It is equity. It is valuations. And valuations require a buyer. Here is the math that the news anchors ignore. When 70 million people try to sell their assets at the same time to fund their retirement, who buys them? The generation that can't afford rent? No. The market knows this. The system knows this. And they have prepared a mechanism to liquidate this wealth before it ever touches your hands. Let's talk about where the money is actually going. The first mechanism of extraction is what I call the Financial Hospice. In the last decade, private equity firms, the same entities that stripped Toys R Us and Red Lobster for parts, have quietly become the largest owners of end-of-life care in the United States. Why? Do they care about grandma? No, they care about the assets she's sitting on. The average cost of a private room in a nursing home is now over $100,000 a year. In major cities, it's double that. Memory care? Triple. Medicare does not pay for this. Medicare pays for acute care, the heart attack, the broken hip. It does not pay for custodial care. So who pays? The house pays. The portfolio pays. The system has designed a perfect funnel. To qualify for Medicaid assistance, a retiree must spend down their assets to virtually zero. This is the look-back period. The state will literally audit your parents' finances for 5 years to ensure they didn't give you a dime before they ask for help. The inheritance you are waiting for is being consumed by a healthcare system that has been financialized to extract maximum yield from a dying demographic. The house you grew up in? It won't be yours. It will be sold to pay for 18 months of care in a facility owned by a hedge fund, which will then sell the house to a rental corporation, which will then rent it back to you. The transfer is complete. The circle is closed. But what if your family is lucky? What if they stay healthy? What if they have liquid cash? Then we meet the second mechanism, the debasement. You see, $50 trillion sounds like a lot of money. But $50 trillion in 2026 will not buy what $50 trillion bought in 2016. The government has a debt problem. $36 trillion and counting. The interest payments alone are now costing more than the entire defense budget. There are only two ways out of this debt spiral. Default, tell the world we are broke. Debase, print the money to pay the debt. No politician chooses default. Default is political suicide. Debasement is just a policy adjustment. This is called fiscal dominance. It means the Federal Reserve no longer matters. The Treasury is running the show and they need inflation. They need your money to be worth less, so their debt is worth less. So let's say your inheritance manages to escape the financial hospice. It lands in your bank account. By the time it gets there, the inflation tax has already eaten 30, 40, maybe 50% of its purchasing power compared to a decade ago. You get the dollars, but you don't get the wealth. You get the number, but not the value. This is the trap. The system has positioned itself on both sides of the transfer. On the front end, they inflate the assets, stocks and real estate, to make the boomers feel rich so they keep spending. On the back end, they inflate the currency and the cost of care to vacuum that wealth back up before it can create a new generation of capital owners. They are not passing the torch. They are burning the candle at both ends. So you see the trap, you see the hospice and the printing press, and your financial advisor tells you not to worry. They tell you to stick to the plan. The 60/40 portfolio, the S&P 500, just buy the index. This is the greatest illusion of them all. For 40 years, passive investing was the winning strategy. Why? Because interest rates were falling. When rates fall, asset prices rise. It was like riding an escalator. You didn't have to climb, you just had to stand there. But in 2026, the escalator stops. Remember the boomers? They hold the majority of those index funds. To pay for their retirement, they have to sell. For the first time in history, we will see structural, persistent selling pressure on the stock market. They are selling to you. When you buy the S&P 500 blindly every month, you are not investing in America. You are becoming exit liquidity for the generation above you. You are buying their inflated bags at the exact moment the demographic tide turns. The passive investor is the sitting duck. But what about bonds, you ask? Bonds are safe. In a normal world, yes. But we do not live in a normal world. We live in a world of fiscal dominance. When inflation is running at 4% or 5% and the government lies and says it's 2%, holding a treasury bond paying 4% is not an investment. It is a slow-motion confiscation. You are locking your money in a cage while the air is sucked out of the room. This is the reality of 2026. The safe assets are the most dangerous. Cash is melting ice. Bonds are return-free risk. And the stock market is a crowded theater where half the audience is trying to leave at the same time. So how do you protect your wealth when the exits are blocked? You have to stop thinking like a consumer and start thinking like a central bank. The $50 trillion opportunity isn't about getting an inheritance. It's about positioning yourself to catch the wealth that spills out of the broken system. You need to execute the debasement trade. Step 1. Minimize your exposure to the dollar. Central banks around the world are buying gold at a record pace. They know what is coming. They are hedging against their own incompetence. You must own what they cannot print. Whether it is gold, silver, or Bitcoin, these are not investments. They are insurance policies against the madness of the sovereign debt. They are the life rafts. Step 2. Own things, not paper. Paper claims on wealth, stocks, bonds can be diluted. Real things cannot. Productive land, energy, commodities. Businesses with pricing power that can raise prices faster than inflation. In the 1970s, the last time we faced this kind of inflation, the people who owned raw materials became kings. The people who owned savings accounts became peasants. Step 3. Protect the transfer before it happens. If your parents have assets, do not wait for the will. The will is a public invitation for the state to take its cut. Talk to them now. Use trusts. Use family-limited partnerships. Move the assets out of their personal names before the medical system triggers the look-back period. Legal armor is cheaper than long-term care. The year 2026 is not an end. It is a pivot point. We are witnessing the end of the easy money era and the beginning of the hard reality. The system is counting on your ignorance. They are counting on you doing what you've always done. They are counting on you waiting patiently for a wealth transfer that will be intercepted before it ever reaches your door. Don't let them take it. The storm is coming. But for those who build an ark, the rain is just water. History has given you the blueprint. Now you have to decide if you're going to read it. History has the answers. Subscribe to find them.